I have wandered along the bristly brambles, snagging threads across the thorns that hedge my way. If perchance I find the place where I might amble, where the bees and honey trees have called my name, I'll sing, come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. My dreams of sewing seams had been fading, and my goals of mending holes had all but died, till the moment the bewitching stitching maiden recommended that I cast my fears aside. She sang, come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. So if you find you're out of spirits, out of money, and you're walking down the dusty road alone, come with me to the realm of hope and honey. In the land of milk and thread, you'll find a home. We'll sing, come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. Come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. Thread milk.
Did I start it? I think
yes,
that's
we're
it.
Good.
We're going.
We're good. All right, here's the next floss tube. I don't even know what number it is because I don't even know how I'm counting them on these last three. But
I guess it doesn't matter. Hello again, FlossTube.
Yeah, tonight we're going to finish up with one more video while Chris is in town because he goes back to work tomorrow. Some of you kind of know the story of his job. Some of you don't. He works as a helicopter pilot in the Gulf of Mexico. We lived there for a while. I can't breathe down there, so we had to move somewhere
Well, you
dry.
can't really breathe anywhere, but you really can't breathe down there.
Really can't breathe down there. So we came back to Utah, and he now travels.
A dry climate really helps her out.
Yeah.
So I commute back and forth. Typically, I'm there for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, but then I get to be home and off for about 2 weeks. So I can commute, and works out fairly well. At least, you know, I'm gone a lot, but
right, it's sad.
It's manageable.
It's lonely. I'm not saying I'm lonely. I'm just saying it is if you're married and you have a spouse and you really don't see each other but like 25-30% of the year.
Sure.
But we manage it, and we have for a while, and we can still communicate unless he's flying. I can't really communicate with you then, but it works out. It's okay. It's an interesting industry. If anybody's ever wondered, he is considered an essential worker. So
yeah, we work every day of the year, including like Christmas and all the holidays.
Yep.
We worked all through COVID.
365, because oil and gas. We kind of do a lot. Anyway, this is Thread Milk Design, FlossTube. And my name on my FlossTube channel is Lori Wilson. I mostly talk about cross stitch and the designs that we work on together as a couple. We are Thread Milk Design, and Chris is my tech guy, once again. So I really decided when we finished the 50 states, which I started about 1.5 years ago, which is the Statehood Splendor Series, that at the end of it all, I decided, we need to do a video and talk about some of the cool stuff that's happened while we've been processing these charts. First of all, to tell you a little bit about ourselves, or even me, the reason I was inspired to do these charts is because I love American history. I love truth, okay? Whether we get all the truth all the time, we don't know, but there's a lot of recordings throughout history that give us the good stories, the good stuff, the service, the inspiration, the aspirations of all these people who wanted to come to America and why. And I've always thought it was very essential. Something you need to know, something we need to remember and celebrate.
I remember you and I were talking about it back before this was a thing. And you were trying to come up with an idea for, or not come up with an idea, but you were thinking of doing a chart for the state of Idaho, where you came from, kind of your, home territory or your birth home, whatever you want to call it. And we talked about some of the ideas of what you could put on that state of Idaho chart that are kind of unique to Idaho. We thought about a potato and other things.
Who wants to stitch a potato?
Right. A brown blob. But and then we were talking about other states, and we kind of came to the quick realization, there's probably like a key iconic thing we could probably chart, or you could chart, design for every state in the nation, because every state has its own unique kind of personality, characteristics at least. And that's what we found out to be the case. And it was really cool to get to know the states better. Some of the things that we learned were very surprising and really interesting.
Yes. So I'm going to show you a finish that I did finally get framed this last summer. And I did take marching orders from the FlossTube video a few videos ago.
You want me to get it down?
Yeah, that'd be great. I might trip over the massive piles.
It's hanging up on our wall.
So I had decided before I even got into designing, I saw these little charts, the Early Americans by Little House Needleworks. And I'm pretty sure I saw Pfeiffer stitching on them too. And I was like, oh, we're of the same mind. We love history. So I was stitching on them. One thing that inspired me to do the Statehood Splendor Series too, besides my love of American history, is in listening to FlossTubers and stitchers, I realized there's a lot of very patriotic stitchers and people out there as far as patriotic American. And so anyway, I started this one and then just realized we have a lot of history we can talk about and started the Statehood Splendor charts. But I stitched this all on one piece on We the People linen by, oh man, am I going to get this wrong? I believe it's X-Shoe Design, but I actually think it's Primitive Hair. And you can order it on her website. This is 30 count, so it's a very large count, and I am a one-strand stitcher. Once I learned how to do one-strand stitching, using one strand of floss, I can't go back. I have a really hard time throwing two threads or two strands on a needle. So I went to Shepherd's Bush and said, I need a thicker thread. I've heard silk is thicker. Can you help me, pick silks to do Early Americans with? And Terry helped me out one day, and we came up with a nice little bundle. And I think it worked really well. I added a couple reds and browns as I went along. But I do have a PDF I can send you if you want to follow my silk, just so you can get that thicker coverage with one strand on the 30 count We the People linen. And then you saw that little eagle at the top. Forgot to point that out.
You want me to get it down again?
Sure.
Okay.
Just because there's kind of an empty space up there, and empty spaces aren't bad in linen or in finishes, but Blackbird Designs, in a summer patriotic book they did a couple years ago, had an eagle on top of one of the houses, and I've Instagrammed about it. So you can go check my Instagram to find out exactly where this eagle came from. But I decided he needed to be sitting there on the ledge, looking down and proud of all of his early Americans who helped establish our country. So I love the little bits of history. There's usually a little tidbit in Little Americans history charts that talk about each one of those people that are in the chart. I love that she did a freedom block that could be set up as the middle block in doing them all together. And there's an equal amount of men and women that she highlighted. 4 women, 4 men, as it should be. Let's give credit to as much as we can, equally. So then we moved on to Idaho, number 1. And what we're going to do here today, first, sorry, before we start those charts, we have to talk to and about Vanna Pfeiffer. She posted on, today, or on Instagram this weekend, and then she just posted a video through FlossTube here about doing her trip and memorializing her trip on the East Coast that she took last summer with their daughter, and decided to put memory dates on the Statehood Splendor Series states that they visited. And you can go watch her latest FlossTube. She talks about it. It was really, really interesting. I just want to say thank you so much, Vanna, for talking about it and for having that appreciation for what we've pulled together for the Statehood Splendor Series. A little bit of facts are included in each booklet or each pattern. And that's what we wanted to talk about today, is the fun that we had pulling those together and deciding what to include. Because you could buy a book on every state, right? Full of information.
Sure, probably several.
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to maybe we'll talk about like why we put what in each chart, but we don't want this to take very long either. Because,
yeah, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on each one.
But one thing, so yes, thank you, Vanna, and
do we want to give a quick shout out also to our shop, our friends that did the traveler tree?
Yes, and Sandy and I talked about this last time, but if you get to go into Dying to Stitch in Virginia, Ann and Pat run that. They are R&R Reproductions in Dying to Stitch. They've done a whole traveler's tree. And when they came into market last year, we only had 25 states done then. We didn't have all 50 like we do now. They committed up front. We're having traveler's tree. We're doing this. We get enough travelers to our shops. People are going to want to stitch these because it shows a history of where you've lived or the states where you've traveled, or lots of people, I have this goal and have for a long time, want to travel to every 50 state. They want to see it. So
yeah, I'm a bit of a knucklehead. Explain to me, what is a traveler's tree?
So the traveler's tree, Dying to Stitch, is a really cute, darling pine tree that they have sitting in the front of their store. Pat Ryan, as I, made these, she stitched them. They had their finishing girl finish them into ornaments. So each state is an ornament for a tree. That's how Vanna just finished them for the latest person she finished for.
So each of these like little finishes hangs like an ornament?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So she's put trim. I don't have trim on any of mine. To me, having the whole 50 state collection, they just don't need the trims. They are what they are, right? But you put trim on them and then a loop at the top, and you can hang them on a tree. And that's how Pat and Ann have had their tree done. And it's darling. You walk in the front door. I haven't been there, but Sandy has. And it's right there. And it has a cute tree skirt. It has heart garland that's made out of map paper. Aww. And it's really cute. Yeah. I think one of their daughters kind of put all that together for them too.
Yeah, because we've noticed a lot of your customers have been buying these state charts. Mm-hmm. As kind of a chronology of their lives, mm-hmm. where they were born, where they've lived, where they've visited, mm-hmm. where they've traveled, where they currently live, and that sort of thing. That's pretty neat. Yeah,
in fact, at Stitch Etc., a cute lady, I wish I could remember her name, I know your face, we had a moment where she was very taken by the whole thing, because she said, I'm putting this down as my genealogy. No. I'm going to put stitch 3 states together with the state my mama was born, where I was born, and where I think her dad was born. So she's got that's her genealogy in one cute little stitch.
That's neat.
Where her people are from, right? Where you came from. Which I love that. I love that this is meaning something mm-hmm. to more than just me, who's like a history kind of nerd. Not that I know a ton. I just love it. I love reading it. So along the way, let's go Vanna first, and then I'll talk about freebies. So Vanna also had a question on her Instagram post that I read through those because I wanted to see if anyone had questions about them. Someone asked about the size linen. What size does it turn out? What have you, questions and things like that. Size is always one of those things you can talk about in cross stitch, in that it never turns out the same for each person, depending on whether you stitch it on cross stitch or Aida, how big of a border you cut past, say like the border, how much extra linen you cut off here before you make your pillow. Everybody has personal preference, what they want to do and how they want it to look and how they want it to end up. Designers can never put an actual finished size. We can say approximate because it'll come out something like that if you use a certain size linen. But this is where your freedom comes in. You can stitch it on whatever you want with whatever you want. It does not matter. I have not done a DMC conversion for these charts because there are so many. 50's a lot. We did account for how many actual individual charts I've designed since we started our little company. I started designing about 1.5 years because we started making thread milk first and the floss gauge for organizational tools. Then we started the chart, so it's been about 1.5 years. Mm-hmm. And what was the number on my file?
I can't remember the number.
With market stitches,
it was pretty big.
It's getting close to 130. So 150 little states was a lot to do DMC conversions for. I did not have time to stitch them, design them, finish them, do everything else that I had needed to accomplish, and take care of ourselves.
Right, but for the most part, these charts typically only have 2 or 3 colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very simple. Some of them only have one color, especially starting out. I only did one thread, one choice. I chose the linens that are by Zweigart, so they're not fancy hand-dyed, beautiful linens we love, but they're basic 3 that you could intermingle and have them turn out with a nice, mix of linen colors.
Can you remember the 3? I think I can think of 2 of the 3.
Oh, let's see if you can.
Well, I know one's antique ivory.
Yes.
One's raw.
Yes.
Platinum.
Platinum. Guys,
there you go.
Look at the guy. He remembers. So I tried to keep them simple. Some of the charts, the details in them and the facts about like Florida, I mean, it's a tropical state. There's a few extra colors on that one that I just had to use. But for the most part, I use your creativity. Do them all one color. All of them, even Florida, because you'll still see the shapes of the citrus trees and, the lime branch and all those things that are on there that they're known for. I did do that. Okay, so size-wise, I'm going to hold it this one. I'm going to show you just some different sizes that we had fun with. I went to an antique show last year, and this guy had hardwood states cut out of wood. He just happened to have a Utah, so of course I'm going to buy that and stitch a Utah. This is 32 count linen stitched with silk, all one color, and you can see how it's kind of a brown and blue combo. So I just glued it on, finished it with some lace and some ribbon on that wood block. But comparing that to this, all of them are called for 36 count.
36 count.
Yep. So that's 36. This is 30 or 32.
You said 32, I think.
32.
Yeah.
With one strand of silk, one strand of fancy floss or DMC. So I do have some DMC included in some of the charts. I will mix hand-dyed DMCs and even silk with some of the stuff I stitch.
You can tell this one's a hand-dyed.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the variegation.
Yes.
See? I'm learning my terms.
So the other thing I had, Sandy, she was helping me last year get ready for market because we literally prepped for that in 2 weeks. So she stitched up a really cute Utah, just like the original colors, on, I think this is 10 count Claustern or Tula. Maybe, I can't remember the count on Tula. And then I just made it into a pillow by ripping the wool. Bless you.
Excuse me.
And sewing it into a bigger pillow. It's even filled with sawdust. So you can hear it. It's like full of sawdust, which is what I put in all of these little pillows too. Anyway, so size, have fun. Do what you want with it. If this is your home state, make a big pillow. Frame it.
It's fun. It's
Whatever.
beautiful.
Yeah. So there you go. Along the way, I did some freebies because I wanted to show some appreciation for, I knew I was stitching all 50 states, but I didn't really know how many of my customers would be buying and stitching all 50 states. And I was surprised by how many. Just because it was, our first rodeo, we don't know what to expect on any of this stuff. So I threw in some freebies. The first one was, and you can find these on my website under freebies.
Yeah, they're available as PDF downloads.
Is it Statehood Splendors and then freebies, or is it freebies its own tab?
Now you're testing me. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
I think it's its own tab.
Under cross stitch charts, though, just look for it. I think there is a freebies tab. I think you're right.
So Liberty Bell was the first one. Next one was, you want to show that one?
Sure.
The Mayflower.
Commemorating the Mayflower that launched in September
6th.
1620.
Yep. And that's because the next set of charts I put them out in like sets of 5, 10.
Hold on a second.
Lately.
The Mayflower launched September 6, 1620. It's also Lori's birthday.
So I had to put that on a pillow. Right? But I mean, it turned out so fun, right? There's a seagull and some anchors. And I kind of did it in dreadful colors that are just,
it looks
sad
great.
because they're at sea and they're sick and they're just trying to get to freedom.
So many didn't make it.
So many
tragically.
didn't make it. And those that did, there's that whole genealogy line that comes from that one guy that actually fell overboard and they saved him. So many American figures came from his genetics, his DNA. Pretty cool. Then the last one I did this summer, teeny little, okay, so on any of the charts that are the first 13 colonies, I did this little flag that says on the chart actually 1 of 13. So you can keep track of which ones those were. I was surprised by a couple of them.
So like Delaware was the first state in one of the 13 colonies, so it'll have the little flag on there, 1 of 13, because it was one of the original 13 colonies.
Yes. So I just took that little flag and turned it into another freebie, 2 little freebies. One's called Betsy's flag, the 1776, and then the stripes. Or is it, I think they're both called Betsy's flag, but you can get both of them. You can get these free on the freebie tab by putting them in your cart in our website and checking out for $0. Okay, took care of that. Now, market. One more item for market we didn't talk about in the last video. We've decided, because we kind of thought about this all along, but then I saw a customer post that she's going to take all of her charts and put them in a binder so that she can teach these facts to her kids. Because besides just, facts like the state tree and the state flower and things like that, there's historical facts based on things that happened in these states. And she wanted to teach them to her kids. So we thought...
Inside each, this is nice little, some historical pieces of information and some state facts.
And that's why we're making this video, because we want to talk to you about some of those cool things that are in there. Anyway, I thought, why don't we just make this a real thing like we thought about and put all the facts plus a picture of each pillow next to their state facts page and put them into a book. So our goal for market is to have a book that's called the Statehood Splendor Series Companion, and it'll have the chart, the finished pillow, not the chart. We're not selling the charts this way because it's not fair to everyone who's already purchased charts at a very cheap price. I didn't want these to be expensive either. I was told by a couple of shop owners, you're not selling them for enough. Right. So I just want you to know, I put a lot of consideration into price, supply products, all those things to make it easier for people who wanted to do all 50 to accomplish it somehow,
So the Statehood Splendor Series Companion book will just have all of the information for each state, all the historical information, plus a photo of the finished pattern, or the finish.
Yeah, basically look like this.
Yeah. No chart.
No chart.
However, there will be some new information in there as well.
Yes.
Lori is compiling some recipes that have some significance in
ancestry
and perhaps even American history.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a quasi cookbook, but there will be some recipes, and there will also be one new original design by Lori, a chart.
And this is it, just to sum up the last of the 50 states. So, and I got it framed over at Renzel this week with my favorite frame at their shop. So it's my country, my home.
So yes, that new chart will be in
the book, the companion book.
The Statehood Splendor Series Companion.
We're so excited. We don't have it totally ready yet, so we're gonna.
Hopefully, we'll have it for market. We'll see.
We had goals. We've had a few hiccups with health and all kinds of things, like everybody has this last year, and it definitely has slowed us down a little bit. Trying to get some things out, but we're loving it. We're having a lot of fun.
It is fun.
You ready to hit these states and
Let's
get everybody motivated?
There we go.
To do their 50. All right. So, okay, Chris has a Jeopardy story too first before we start.
Well, it's kind of funny. I like to watch Jeopardy. I record the shows, watch them at night after work when I'm away from home. And several times we got done, because over the last year and a half, Lori would typically design 5 states at a time, and we would release, after they were designed, the 5 states in a batch. And so often, after having just released the 5 states, watching an episode of Jeopardy, 1 or 2, in some cases, sometimes 3 or 4 questions on Jeopardy were directly answered by the information we just put in the chart for that particular state. Sometimes there's even silly things, like one that I can remember off the top of my head was there's a law in Wisconsin that says it's illegal for restaurants to serve margarine unless specifically asked by the customer. So by law, restaurants in Wisconsin are required to serve butter.
They better not be giving you margarine. Or you can call.
That's right. Shame on that. That was a question on Jeopardy. I was like, hey, I know that. Couple of times the questions on Jeopardy too, none of the 3 contestants knew the answer. And I was just like, hey, I know this one. I know this one.
I know that.
I've learned this.
So cool.
Kind of fun.
Yeah. So cool.
Made me feel smart.
Yeah. Oh, but okay. So here, what we're going to try to do is highlight something in each one of these that you may not know. So this might inspire you to do a little bit of, well, just for the history, just to, Here's one thing we did find often is that the state mottos were in Latin. So we may not know how to pronounce them. And the one that Vanna showed today was Maine, which I still don't know exactly how to say it. If my son, the Latin teacher, was here, he could tell us, but I think it's dirigo. Is that right? Or dirigo. It's 2 I's. Dirigo? Maybe dirigo. Anyway, it means to direct. Perfect motto.
I direct or I lead.
Yeah, perfect motto for the lighthouse state, for Maine. Anyway, here we go. Number 1. And we're just going to rattle through these. Okay. Number 1, Day of Statehood for Idaho was 1890. It was the 43rd state, and it is called the Gem State.
Okay, so why was it first? I think you need to explain that.
Okay, why did I call... Okay, so we have numbered all of these 1. So like first is Idaho. That's not the first state. The reason I started with my home state is because I wanted this to be fair. I felt like it was fair to pull in western states and alternate with eastern states that came first. So Delaware is number 2, which was the first state to claim statehood. But Idaho didn't claim its statehood. It's, till number 43. So on the chart or on the pillow, you will see the number of its statehood and the year it became a state.
43.
It will always show up in that corner, the bottom left corner on every Statehood Splendor Series pillow. So it's very easy to recall. And that is what that number is, and then the year. Then the little motifs that I chose to put on it were just based on things about the state. So like that tree is the Idaho state tree, a representation of the Idaho state tree, which is the western white pine. That diamond looking shape is a gem for the gem state. And then you have that little pick that is a miner's pick, and that light would be the light that the miner would take with him into the cavern to find gems. And then that cowboy boot just represents my dad. He's a cowboy. Wears cowboy boots everywhere, and you're going to find a lot of them in Idaho. And it talks about that a little bit. I will put some personal information in these facts too sometimes. So, grew up in Idaho, learned Idaho history my whole life.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2.
Okay, so our number 2 state is actually the number 1 state. That's Delaware. And one little thing I'll highlight about Delaware. It's the first state in the nation. It became a state in 1787, specifically on December 7th, which later became known as Pearl Harbor Day. But the state motto, liberty and independence. And I think that's just a great little thing to note about the first state in the nation, that their motto is liberty and independence. And on a personal note, I love the blue chicken, the blue hen, which is the state bird of Delaware.
You always refer to that blue hen.
I do.
He loves it.
I think it's great.
Okay, so our third state was, or state chart, is Wyoming. It is the 44th state. Its statehood is July 10th of 1890. And you can see there's a bison on it. There's a cowboy hat to represent cowboys again. But the beautiful Tetons, which are named by the French, and there was a lot of French trapping that went on up in this area, are also depicted there. I grew up under the Tetons. For a couple years, we lived right underneath them. And so I had to have Tetons in Wyoming. They sit right on the border of Idaho and Wyoming. And the coolest part about Wyoming, you guys, Wyoming was the first state to give women the right to vote. Thus is named the Equality State. Kind of like early Americans. That's why I was liking that so much. Wyoming women were the first in the nation to vote, serve on juries, and hold public office. Bet you didn't know that.
Number 4 is Pennsylvania. So one interesting little tidbit about Pennsylvania. William Penn was one of the key figures that founded that land, but he didn't want it named after himself. He wanted it to be known as the land of Sylvania, which comes from the Latin root meaning woods, as in forested. But King Charles II insisted that it be called Pennsylvania. And he was worried, William Penn was worried that settlers were going to believe that he named it after himself. But William Penn was persecuted in England for his religious beliefs. He was a Quaker. And one of the main reasons why he wanted to establish this land in Pennsylvania is so that he could have and exercise freedom of religion.
That's why most of us are here,
Right.
I would say, even nowadays. Okay, the next state release, number 5, is Utah. And like I was saying, I went through my history, then the state's history, and then I just kind of mixed them all together, what states were left that I hadn't had a history with. So Utah is the second state that I had visited in my life. So Utah's called the Beehive State. And some people have wondered, like, why? Why do they get to be the beehive? Well, I mean, most states name themselves, but when I won't go into too much of it, but basically they produced a city and homes so fast. They needed a place to live, the pioneers, when they were exiled from Missouri and had to find a place to live. So they came out to Utah and set up as fast as they could. They even had silk worms they brought with them, and they started making their own silk. I think that's pretty industrious. And the beehive is the symbol of industry. the thing I find so interesting about Utah and the stories in the chart is that their state bird is the California gull. Not a Utah bird, it's a California bird. And the story that claimed that bird was there was an infestation on their crops one of the early years that they were here by locusts. And it was so bad. I mean, there's been paintings depicting the whole thing. And what saved, I don't even know how much of this crops it saved, or if it just was, you know, a blessing of annihilation of the locusts. But the California seagulls swept in from how many miles away and ate up the locust. And there's beautiful paintings of this whole story based on, I'm sure, witness or whatever of stories handed down to
and that
families.
Miracle likely, I mean, it definitely saved countless lives, because those original settlers were planning on that crop in order to survive the winter.
Yeah.
All right, number 6 is New Jersey. And one interesting tidbit about New Jersey is it is known as the Garden State. However, interestingly, New Jersey has the highest population density of any state. So kind of an interesting juxtaposition. Highest population density, but it's also the Garden State. And the reason why it's the Garden State, it's the nation's leading producer of tomatoes, blueberries, and cranberries.
And that's not wild blueberries, that's blueberries.
That's right.
The wild blueberries come
As we
from
learned.
Maine.
That's right.
And they are on the chart. They are. You can stitch those wild blueberries. Okay, so New Mexico is number 7. And why did New Mexico come next? Well, right after high school, I graduated high school in Idaho, and I went to be a nanny in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a family that just so happened to go to church with Chris's family. So, New Mexico is called the Land of Enchantment. I'd say that's about right. That's where we met.
That's where we got our start.
Yes, and I actually really, really love how this turned out, this New Mexico
It's
chart.
a great one.
The adobe style is beautiful. It did not become a state till 1912. It's the 47th state. It was part of the Mexico, California, those states that came last. History. And one thing that I love that I did not know this growing up, but I didn't travel a lot. I mean, when you're in high school and whatever, growing up, you basically live your, you know, what you do with your family. I did not know what a chili pepper was. We didn't even eat salsa. Okay? We ate ketchup on our tacos. So I was totally taken by the chili peppers that are literally born, more of them are born in New Mexico than anywhere else in the nation. I think of all the states combined, is what it says. Before achieving, oh sorry, that's not the part I wanted to read, because there's a lot more in here. But basically, at Christmas time, the chilies are strung and dried on big strands and also made into wreaths, and that's what people decorate their homes with at Christmas time.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Beautiful.
It is.
Oh, and yes, there is a cross in this little adobe home / church here. The Catholic missions were very big in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. They were.
And still are. Maybe they're
some of the oldest structures in the state have to do with Catholic missions and religious missions back in the day before New Mexico was a state.
So much so, and this is why I'm very intrigued by Willa Cather. She's written a lot of books about different religions, like the Mormons who came to Utah. She talks about them and their trail across the Midwest Plains. But she also has written a book called Death Comes for the Archbishop about a leader's time in New Mexico. Loved that book. Highly recommend it. It's beautiful.
Number 8 is Georgia. And you notice the letters WJM at the bottom of this finish. What are those for? Well, inside the state facts, we learned that the state motto is wisdom, justice, and moderation. So wisdom, justice, moderation, WJM.
Which Martin Luther King Jr. quoted a lot. He used those words in his
That's right.
speeches.
That was made famous by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We all know Georgia is famous for peaches. But one other little interesting thing that you may not have known, Wesleyan College in Macon, Georgia. That was the first college in the world chartered to grant degrees to women. And I thought that was wonderful. So that's Georgia.
Right. Okay. So one thing I've loved about, and I hope I say this correct for everyone, but when I did start making these, of course, was during COVID 2020, and I feel like our country was divided. It was somebody wanted us to be divided, right? And in doing these and some other historical, like the For the Bowl series, Patriotic, the Liberty Lodge, I put a lot of historical things in there that encompassed good things people said from both political parties, because there's goodness everywhere. You just have to find it and appreciate it. So on these state facts that I put in, I really tried to encompass all of that to, in a way, put some glue back in our history, in our lives, at a time when there wasn't a whole lot. Does that make sense? Something positive. All right, California. California is the 31st state, and it became a state in 1850. Oh, a lot sooner than New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a great big bear and a star on their state flag. And I love their, I mean, it doesn't mean anything really historically, except Eureka is is it Greek? I think it's the Greek word for, I found it. We all know California was a big gold rush mining state, as a lot of the states out west are and have been. So that's where their motto came from. But while we were reading about it, there was a lot of really deep old history about California, a lot of Spanish influence, of course, because they were owned by Spain first. The Spaniards gave the name Las Californias to this peninsula of Baja California and to Alta California, the region that became the present-day state of California. And the name is also possibly derived from the mythical island of California in the fictional story Queen Califia, as recorded in 1510.
It's a long time ago.
1510, yeah, in the Adventures of Esplanadian. Did I say that?
Say what?
Esplanadian.
Yeah. Esplanadian.
And the reason we did California next is because Chris was from California. We got married and we moved to California after New Mexico.
After we got married, that's where we first lived.
I loved it. I saw my first palm tree.
All right, our 10th chart is Connecticut. And look at that whale on there. We love that whale. And the reason why that whale is on the Connecticut chart is because the sperm whale is the official state animal of Connecticut. But there's also an acorn with the letter N and an acorn with the letter P down towards the bottom. And the reason why is Nathan Hale, the N, is the official state hero of Connecticut. And the P stands for Prudence Crandall, who is the official state heroine of the state of Connecticut. We thought that was really cool that Connecticut recognizes a state hero and heroine. Prudence Crandall became the state heroine. She was born in 1803, died in 1890, and in 1833, so mind you, she was 30 years old, she established the first academy for African American women in New England. And during its 18 months of operation, Prudence Crandall and her students, they faced hardships and violence, but she exemplified great courage and moral strength by taking a stand against prejudice. So, way to go, Prudence Crandall, state heroine of Connecticut.
Right? These issues over religion and all these things have been fought forever, right? Probably through the whole history of the world. Just is what it is.
Yeah, but isn't that great having an educational academy for African American women prior even
To the Civil War.
to the Civil War?
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Yep. Okay, next state that we designed, number 11, Montana. Yes, that is black spotted cutthroat trout. So trout's big. My dad's a fisherman. What we did for family vacations was fishing. And I caught my first trout. Was it a trout, Dad? I can't remember.
I think it was a trout.
I think it probably was.
High likelihood anyway.
Was on a trip to Big Sky. Sorry, not Big Sky. Well, there was Cody, Wyoming, and then there were the Beartooth Mountains, and that all kind of borders. Anyway, beautiful place to go fishing. The reason Lewis and Clark is on this chart is that when they were, sent to do their expedition by Thomas Jefferson, which was so long ago, right? They're just go down the rivers and see how far you go. See where it gets you. They, of course, went through all kinds of harsh weather, unforgiving terrain. There were no trails. They probably had a few very helpful natives helping them along the way. We know that. And their journey was approximately 8,000 miles, deemed a huge success, and provided new information about previous uncharted areas in North America. Their travels, the reason I put them on the Montana chart and charted it that way is because most of those 8,000 miles, or the biggest stretch through one state, is Montana. And I am here to attest that Montana is gorgeous. You need to check it out.
I can confirm that. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Oh,
so sorry. Because we're talking about equality and all this awesome stuff, Jeanette Rankin from Missoula, Montana, was the first woman elected to U.S. Congress in 1916.
I did not know that until we did this chart.
Yep, another female making her way.
Very good. All right, number 12 is Massachusetts. Massachusetts is one of those states. All kinds of history, all kinds of wonderful events. We could have put all kinds of stuff in there.
You could have, yeah.
I mean, books, I'm sure.
Okay.
One little thing we'll highlight. Deborah Sampson, a woman I'd never heard of before. But Massachusetts is one of those states that also has a state heroine. Deborah Sampson is the state heroine of Massachusetts. How did she achieve this honor? Because she was passionate about freedom. She actually posed and took on the identity of a male just so that she could fight in the Revolutionary War as a soldier.
Was she that really tall, redheaded woman?
I don't know.
Or is that another character?
Don't know if
We're
I
gonna
heard a
read about here in
description.
a sec.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure. It could be. But anyway, way to go, Deborah Sampson. Fighting for freedom in the Revolutionary War, posing as a male, earning her title now as state heroine of Massachusetts.
So beautiful. Such a good story. Wouldn't you like that to be your story when you die?
Well, maybe not me, but
I don't know. Not you.
but yes, that would be wonderful.
Well, and talk about bravery, not
Yes.
cowering to anything. All right, the next state is Texas, because after California, let's see, we lived in Utah, Albuquerque, then we moved to Texas for a couple of years in Spring, Texas, which is where I really got into cross stitch, and met Pam at 3 Stitches. But anyway, Texas, we loved living in Texas. Texas became a state in 1845, and it's the 28th state, and its motto is friendship. Texas is also pronounced, let's see if I get it right, Tejas, which means friends or allies. And that name was given to them by came from the Hasine Indian tribe. So the Alamo took place here. Sam Houston comes from here, reigns from here. The first word, okay, I'm just going to point this out. The first word spoken from the moon on July 20th in 1869 was Houston. Because that, of course, is where NASA headquarters are.
Very cool.
Yes.
All right, number 14 is Maryland. One fun fact about Maryland, Francis Scott Key. He is the composer and he wrote the Star Spangled Banner. And he did so in Maryland after a night of fighting. The War of 1812. This was in 1814 after witnessing the U.S. flag remain flying over Fort McHenry following a night of bombardment by the British ships. So Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner in Maryland.
That's a good story. All right, so Illinois, after we lived in Texas, we moved back to Utah for a little while, and then Chris became a pilot, and we moved to Illinois. We lived there for 1 year in Quincy and loved our time there. So Illinois was the 21st state, became a state in 1818. You might be wondering what that tall structure is on there, but some people know that as the Sears Tower. It is now called what's the new name? We put it on here.
Did we put it on there?
We did. Formerly Sears Tower. It's now known as the Home Insurance Building. Oh, no. It was the 10-story Home Insurance Building in Chicago. Then the Willis Tower, now formerly the Sears Tower in Chicago, is the nation's tallest building. It's 108 stories and stands 1,451 feet tall, 1,729 feet from ground to tip. So that's its largest monument. But more than anything, it's the land of Lincoln. And there's, cardinals all throughout the Midwest. I did love getting to experience the Midwest by seeing cardinals in the wintertime. They're beautiful. And yeah, we're not telling you everything that's on here. You have to just, get the book. And
there's lots of neat stuff on each one.
Yeah.
Number 16 is South Carolina, also one of the original 13 colonies. And some interesting facts about South Carolina. More Revolutionary War battles and skirmishes were fought in South Carolina than any other state. And also the first battle of the Civil War took place at Fort Sumter in South Carolina. It was the first state to leave the Union, and it rejoined the United States. So it left in 1861, and it rejoined the United States in 1868.
All right, so the next state, Louisiana. We moved to Louisiana after Illinois because that's where Chris was working. And we lived there for 5 years. And wow, it's like a whole different country down there. So fun. French influence. So, of course, there's going to be a, little bit of a French word, oui. It became a state in 1812. It's one of the old ones. Now, when you tour different plantations and historical sites in Louisiana, they give you a lot of information about Thomas Jefferson and the Louisiana Purchase. One of the agreements, two, I think there were 3 total, and I can't ever remember the third one, but the 2 that they told us at the Disterham plantation in Louisiana, which is where Interview with a Vampire was filmed. It's a good plantation to visit. What I liked about it the most was that there were homes. The owner gave all of his slaves at the time homes and enough area to have a garden and animals. It was more like a community. So, a lot better than some of the stories you've heard. But those 2 things that they told us about the Louisiana Purchase was that Thomas Jefferson had to agree. Napoleon said you have to keep these in the adoption, whatever agreements, papers, that the main language would remain French and that the counties would be called parishes, like they are in France. And it was agreed, and it still is today. I don't know that the main language is really considered French as much as far as speakers go, but I do know it's still taught, and a lot of homeschool people that we knew that lived out in the country were taught French first, and then English. So they are dual speakers. Yeah, Mardi Gras. We learned all kinds of stuff living down there. All kinds. Loved it.
All right, number 18, New Hampshire. All kinds of cool stuff about New Hampshire. Yes, the ladybug is their state insect, and the pumpkin is their state vegetable. What's it called?
I think it's fruit.
Fruit, that's right. Sorry.
Because it has seeds, right?
That's right.
We were very surprised to find that.
Okay, fun fact, this has a personal connection also with us. Bodie Miller, shout out to Bodie Miller.
My nephew's name is Bodie Miller.
But Bodie Miller was an alpine ski racer from Easton, New Hampshire. One of the most successful American ski racers of all time. Considered one of the greatest World Cup racers of all time. He had 33 victories. And more information in the chart about him, about Lindsey Vonn, and some of their accomplishments in New Hampshire, as well as some interesting state history.
All right, next is Iowa, the 19th chart. Iowa is the 29th state, and it became a state in 1846. The thing I loved about Iowa so much in this chart is that their flag is striped, just like this is charted. So it's red, white, blue, 3 solid stripes.
And horizontal stripes.
And horizontal, just like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to depict that flag. I thought that was beautiful. In keeping with that, and then putting a bunting at the top with the red, white, and blue bunting. Iowa has 99 counties. I don't know why that seemed like a ton to me. Maybe they're all really small. This is one of the bigger states. 92% of Iowa's land is covered with farms. It's where our food comes from, peeps. The best crop is corn. Surprisingly, Iowa is the nation's largest corn producer. Nebraska is third behind Iowa and Illinois. So even though Nebraska are the corn huskers, Iowa produces the most corn.
Well, how about that?
You never know. And farmers have to change their crops, and I'm sure those facts change sometimes, but for now, corn is big. Probably because of the land, the amount of land that they're building it or growing it on. The Amana colonies are in Iowa. All you cross-stitchers and sewers, that's where we go to have a lot of good cross-stitch time. There's some information in here a little bit, I think, about the people who settled there. They were German, and they were persecuted also, looking for freedom. I guess probably my favorite thing that I had to have on this chart, too, because of the red, white, and blue flag depiction, was also their motto: our liberties we prize and our rights we will maintain. Going back to, the Revolutionary War theme. I think sometimes we forget why our nation was founded. And I like states that are sticking to that history and reminding.
That's true. That's
people.
nice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully this states will continue to remember that.
Yes.
Number 20 is Virginia. And that blue blob in the center? Yes, that is a depiction of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
And you know what? Because of the potato brown blob, I was really worried about putting this in the chart. And at market last year, someone came right up to their Virginia pillow and went, Blue Ridge Mountains.
Uh-huh.
And they knew. So I think we did okay.
And here's an actual photo, of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And you can see that it looks just like the chart. A couple of other little tidbits. 8 presidents of the United States, which is more than any other state, were born in Virginia. They include George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and of course 5 others that I'll let you read about. But Jamestown, Virginia was founded for the purpose of silk cultivation. interesting. But a fungus destroyed the mulberry trees and wiped out the silk crop. So instead they decided to go with a different crop, an alternative, and they went with tobacco.
Silk tobacco.
Which is now the leading cash crop in Virginia, even today.
So that area is just better for tobacco.
Apparently so.
Well, it is kind of humid there, It's conditions have got to be right, and I'm sure there was a lot of that learning that went on back then. Okay, one of my favorite things about this next chart is
which is Indiana.
Became a state in 1816. Can you believe we can read these backwards? Okay, I can get them. It's the 19th state.
It became a state in 6181.
And I really wanted to celebrate the name of Indiana. It is straight out of, it is named based on the people that were there. And at that time, they were affectionately called the Indians. And even the state capital, Indianapolis, was named after them. So they have paid homage to the original dwellers of that area. And I love that. I think it shows honor towards them. When I was deciding what symbols to put on here to represent the Native Americans and Indians from that time, I called my daughter and asked her a little bit about it because she'd been studying anthropology. And she happened to have a Native American friend who we asked her and got permission, like, are you okay? Is this okay with your culture to put these symbols on this chart? And she was absolutely, that's an honor. So the teepee, you see two teepees there, the top, the big one and the little one, represents home. The arrows represent, what did we put on there? Direction or protection. Sorry, I don't want to put a big pause out here. Anyway, then also their state tree is this tulip tree. So I wanted the tree to look like it actually was like tulips, which it does. I remember living in the Midwest thinking, like, what are those trees with those fabulous, beautiful, huge tulip-looking flowers on them? And I think they bloom before the leaves come. So it is a blossom, but not for fruit, just a beautiful, first part of the cycle. So I had to have that tulip tree on there. I hope you appreciate that chart as much as I do, the history of it. It's also stitched in apple fritter by Classic Colorworks. Get that beautiful variegation, all one color.
All right, the 22nd chart is New York, which was the 11th state and also one of the original 13 colonies. The state bird is the eastern bluebird. That's why it's charted. And one of the things that's interesting about New York, all kinds of stuff we could have put about New York. But one of the things that we decided to include some details on has to do with the Delft blue pottery. So I'm just going to finish it by saying there's a lot of history dating back to the mid-16th century and influence from Italy and from Spain, Belgium, and so potters fleeing from Spanish conquerors and others regrouped in Delft in 1602, and from that time onward that city has been linked to the Delft blue pottery. So that is one of the things we highlighted on the chart, and the reason why Lori decided to go with the Belsois Indigo Silk Floss, the blue floss on the chart, to pay homage to the Delft blue pottery.
Mm-hmm. And that Dutch influence in New York that's still there. Mm-hmm. Through architecture and all of that, which is so representative of so many people who came from Europe to check out this new country. All right, number 23 chart, The 23rd chart is Ohio. Ohio was so fun to read everything about. We've got an airplane on there for the Wright brothers. They were, well, it's more than, well, how can we sum up this chart? It's got a lot summed up in it. The airplane and with God and moon, the words on there, all sum up the great aviators that came from Ohio. We've got Neil Armstrong and Wilbur and Orville Wright and the Kitty Hawk. All of them were from Ohio.
That's
produced
right.
in Ohio.
Kitty Hawk was not. It's in the Carolinas, but
That was just a place they went to go fly. The first airplane they made, the Kitty Hawk, because the conditions were right. But they all come from Ohio.
that's right.
And truly, if you think about flying and aviation and what a miracle it is, I thought it was appropriate to embody all of that together by putting the state motto, partials of it, on the pattern that with God all things are possible. Now that carnation right there stands for the carnation that President William McKinley always wore in his suit lapel. He was assassinated in 1901, and the state of Ohio memorialized him by having or changing or making the state flower the red carnation, which I think is beautiful. And yes, it is the Buckeye State. And a lot of people are like, what are Buckeyes? I don't know. Unless you live there, what are they? Where'd they come from? Buckeye trees. So it's a little kind of a nut that grows on the Buckeye tree. They're prolific in the state. They're everywhere. And they were chosen, or it was chosen to name the state the Buckeye State. The nuts of the Buckeye trees, though, resemble the shape and color of a deer's eye, giving it its name.
Buckeye.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it got named after a deer's eye. That's a true Buckeye, is the buck's eye, not just the nut on the tree.
So, do they have Buckeyes and doe eyes?
I don't know. Doe eyes. All right. Oh, and just FYI, when I got to market, and we got to market last year, I left off one of those little stitches in the propeller cross, and it was on the chart. So I'm so sorry if you had to purchase one with a missing cross stitch.
So if anybody has one of those original chart photos, it's now worth extra money.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's a collector's item.
And I didn't notice until I looked at the pillow. Someone was looking at it, and I was like, oh my gosh. It was not just on the chart that was wrong. It was the actual pillow that was stitched wrong. So I had to fix that night, in fact. I had some red thread, and I fixed it.
Too funny. All right. 24 is North Carolina. And one of the great things about the state of North Carolina is the state motto, which is in Latin. And if I pronounce it correctly, the motto is Esse quam videri, which literally translated means to be rather than to seem. Which
so that's like, don't just say it, do it.
That's right. Lori and I thought that was a great motto for a state. Much better to do rather than to seem.
So
to give the outward appearance of.
Mm-hmm. That's why it says seem, not be. Or be, not seem, sorry.
Yes, it's charted be, not seem.
It is the opposite. Just flipped it.
That's right. It's getting late.
We're almost there.
One other interesting tidbit, though, about North Carolina, the state nickname, the Tar Heel State. So the origination, where did that nickname come from? And what does the Tar Heel State mean? Well, actually, the origination is unclear. There's no definitive reason why or where it came from. However, most historians believe that North Carolina has a long history of producing tar and pitch and other goods like that related to tar, and so they think that that's where it came from. But
what is tar? Is it a natural product from rubber oil?
Yeah, I mean it's a byproduct of one of those things. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
So it's a natural.
I don't know that tar itself is natural. I don't know. I'm sure there's a someone out there cringing right now and say, yeah, we know the answer.
Leave a comment below. That's what those comments are for. All right, we're halfway right now. This will, as soon as I'm done, pause it and go have a potty break or whatever it is you need to get through this video if you want to keep watching. But Kentucky, we have a lot of fondness for Kentucky. Chris's family, ancestors came through Kentucky. It became a state in 1792. That was a long time ago. It's the 12th state, 15th state. And of course the house on there is the Mary Todd house, Lincoln's wife. And that little instrument you see is a mandolin. So our son, or our oldest son, who's the Latin teacher, served a 2-year church mission in Kentucky. And he also, but before that, before he even got called there, my great grandmother's mandolin that she played in her family band was hanging on our wall. My mom and dad didn't want it anymore, didn't have a use for it, but Christopher was born like really, really musical. He decided he wanted to start playing it. Well, he can sing too, which you all know. But he decided he wanted to start playing it, so he learned the mandolin when he was like 15 on that old belly formed. It's gorgeous. I should have it here to show you today, but it's hanging up downstairs. So he then eventually saved his money, and after taking lessons and doing some plays and things, and bought his own newer mandolin. So I still have the old one. He has a newer one, and it's beautiful. But anyway, I had to put a mandolin on there because William Smith Moore was an American mandolinist, singer, and songwriter who created the bluegrass music genre. He was the guy. He started bluegrass. I love that, bluegrass grass is called Kentucky bluegrass. It's not blue, but I think where it gets its name is that a viewer told me, has left a comment, that when it goes to seed and it has that little fluffy stuff on top, that's kind of a grayish blue color, so that's where it gets its name. Anyway, wonderful William Smith Monroe. We love bluegrass music. Christopher became very fond of it, performs it, writes it. He's very good at it. So of course we had to have a mandolin, and there's a little bit of bluegrass grass stitched in the bottom of it with straight stitches down there. Lots of other really cool, interesting facts about Kentucky in there. All right,
cool.
It's halftime. Do you need a drink?
Whatever you want. I'm good.
We're getting long.
We just burn through it?
We're going to burn through it. I'm going to get a drink.
10 seconds on each one?
Yes.
I'll take longer than 10 seconds while you take a drink. 26 is Rhode Island. Rhode Island is also one of the original 13 colonies. It is actually the 13th of the 13 colonies, and that's why it's the 13th state. The word hope is stitched in the chart because hope is the state motto. Rhode Island is the smallest state in the nation, and their state motto, the one word hope, is also the smallest and shortest state motto of any state motto in the nation. I thought that was kind of fitting.
That's awesome.
All kinds of neat information about Rhode Island.
I forgot to say my favorite other thing about this chart is the motto for Kentucky. It is united we stand, divided we fall.
That's a good one.
That's very timely.
That's right.
So we have to decide, All right, the next state, number 27, is Missouri, 27th release chart. Missouri became a state in 1821, and it's the 24th state. We had to memorialize Mark Twain on here and that St. Louis Arch. That St. Louis Arch is so amazing. And if you haven't seen it, put it on your list of things to go see. Where did we write about that? Something about, it's the nation's tallest monument. So not building, but monument. The Gateway Arch stands 630 feet high and 630 feet wide at the base. I wonder why that number was significant, or if it's like an engineering equation for the whole thing. Because it's pretty weird to see that thing and that it stands like it does, and that you can even go up inside of it.
It's very iconic.
In an elevator, yeah. So the arch was made to symbolize that it is the gateway to the West.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, and their motto's good too. Man, it's really a lot of Latin. Salus populi suprema lex esto. Let the welfare of the people be the supreme law.
There you go. Well done,
I think
Missouri.
we need to plug the phone in.
Probably
It just
so.
gave us a little thing.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do mine. 28, Vermont. Vermont is small in geography, but it is the nation's leading producer of maple syrup. So we have included with each Vermont chart a little piece of maple hard candy made from real Vermont maple.
Side note, the people we bought that candy from and the information's on the chart sold that little business to a guy. He still sells all of their products. I think it's under the same name. But yeah, just heard that little tidbit from them. Sorry about this plug-in thing. We hope it doesn't make the phone fall.
Oh, it's going to make the phone fall. Maybe I can...
Let's tape it, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're just kind of in a weird little setting here.
Okay, everybody hold your breath. It's going to spin.
Shoot. Hold, please.
I guess we could pause the recording.
Yeah.
That would be too easy. Keep going, hon. Do the next one. We can do them out of order.
Okay, well, I'll just talk about Oregon. It's the 29th chart. And the reason it came next is because I visited Oregon once on a teacher trip, training admin trip that I went on. And I got to be in Eugene, Oregon, and then travel out to Florence in the rented car that I had. And they highly recommended it at the training session I was at the University of Oregon there in Eugene, to go see the coast and have some ice cream and just enjoy ourselves. And it was beautiful. It was breathtaking. I got out of the car and walked up one of... Whoops.
Uh-oh.
That's not going to work. Stronger tape.
Huh.
Man, this could be a blooper reel.
Yeah, no kidding. What not to do.
I would just get more tape.
Okay, I will.
Wrap it around 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
Washi tape. Isn't very strong. Anyway, climbing up the jetty on the Oregon coastline in Florence, and you can kind of hear the ocean sounds coming up over the sand, and it was just the most breathtaking kind of spiritual experience I'd had for a long time, and helped me realize what beautiful things that God created for us to appreciate and enjoy in our great country here, in our great world. And we're not saying, like, you know, with this whole thing, like, America's more beautiful than anything else. Heavens no. We're just
I'm saying it.
We're just pointing out what's going on, you know, what things we have to travel around and see and appreciate here. And that we are grateful for it. Also, okay, I think you're set up. Sorry for the wiggles, you guys.
Okay, hopefully
You're
that will
not
hold.
Professionals, and we have to plug it in. So Oregon, state facts. It became a state on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1859. It's the 33rd state. It's also nicknamed the Beaver State. Its capital is Salem. And what was the one thing I thought was so interesting about Oregon is this mushroom that grows. The largest mushroom organism lives in the state of Oregon.
It's a weird thing.
So, of course, I've got mushrooms all along the bottoms of the trees there. And there's a lot of forest in Oregon, too. And those fish up there are the Chinook. Chinook? Is that the right word? Yeah, Chinook salmon. Largest of all the Pacific salmons. I believe it... Are those the ones that go up the Columbia River to Idaho? And
well, that's a salmon.
there's
thing,
a lot of
so
different
probably.
salmon that do that. Yeah. Anyway, that's why the fish are there. Okay, but let me read you about this mushroom. Sorry, I
Isn't
just
it
got
like
distracted by the Christmas trees.
4,000 years old, something like that?
It's, okay, here it is. Oregon. Oh, whoop. The honey mushroom. Another unique attraction of Oregon is the honey mushroom, which is the largest living organism in the world. It covers 2,300 acres and is believed to be somewhere between 2,400 and 8,600 years old. Mushrooms.
A 2,300 acre, 4,000-year-old mushroom. Or 8,000-year-old mushroom, whatever it is.
Maybe that's why the hemp festival is held in Eugene, Oregon every year. I don't know.
All right. Number 30 is Tennessee. And there's a lot of cool stuff about Tennessee. I'm not going to talk about the Singer sewing machine. I'll let you read about that. But Tennessee is known as the volunteer state. Why are they known as the volunteer state? Because back at the beginning in the foundation, or shortly after Tennessee became a state, the U.S. nation as it was found itself at war again with Great Britain in the War of 1812. Tennessee had lots of volunteers, citizens that volunteered to be soldiers to travel to New Orleans to fight the Battle of New Orleans in 1812. Anyway, since then they became known as the volunteer state. I thought that was pretty cool.
And it's not a huge state to have that many volunteers come from.
Yeah.
So per capita, it's pretty amazing. So state number 31 chart is Oklahoma. Became a state in 1907. It's the 46th state. And their new motto is labor. Sorry, their old state motto is labor omnia vincit. Labor conquers all. Basically, they were, formed on hard work. They did change recently. Their new state motto is Oklahoma - in God we trust ! As of 2012. Oklahoma pays homage once again to the Native Americans. The Indian blanket is Oklahoma state flower, wildflower. It's beautiful. It's the one that we all know and love. And its name comes from two native Choctaw words, Okla and Huma, or Hama, which mean translated red people. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Next. Let's move.
32 is Mississippi. All kinds of cool information about Mississippi.
Is this the one I got the date wrong, and the lady emailed me and said I had inverted two numbers in 1871, and the day I posted, she's like, no, it's 1817.
Oh, interesting.
And I had to re-stitch the pillow and take it apart and everything and get the chart right.
How funny.
But I'm so glad that you guys are pointing out. We don't want these things to be wrong.
We've had a couple of little errors like that we had to redo. Okay, so just one little fun fact, interesting little tidbit, and the reason why there's a pair of footprints under the letters MS on the chart. The reason why there's a pair of footprints there is because prior to Phil Gilbert in Vicksburg, Mississippi in 1884, footwear was sold kind of universally as just a shoe or a boot. But he's the guy that created left and right specific footwear. So,
wow.
Be thankful to Phil Gilbert in Vicksburg, Mississippi for having a left and a right foot.
I'm happy about that. All right, so Nevada is the 33rd Statehood Splendor chart. It became a state in 1864, and it's the 36th state. Tahoe. There are some really interesting facts about Lake Tahoe in here.
There are. It's cool stuff.
We'll leave that up to you. But the fact that I love the most is this is just another fashion thing. But the jeans,
blue jeans
were invented in Nevada by a guy named Jacob Davis. He's world famous for his invention. And he's not nearly as well known, though, as the co-inventor Levi Strauss. So obviously they were a team. But Levi got the name. Yeah. Oh, and let's see. I should say something cool about it, too. The state motto is all for our country. Which could sum up a lot of stuff. I think the state flag's cool on this one.
Oh, cool. Okay. 34, Alabama. Oh, it's just, kind of fun to review all these because there's just so much interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So in the state facts about Alabama, you can learn a little bit more about Rosa Parks, the Tuskegee Airmen. Alabama was the first state to honor Christmas as a legal holiday. 1895, the state flag of Alabama that looks like this, with a red X or cross across the white background of this flag. So in 1895, the flag was defined as a crimson cross of St. Andrew on a field of white. But it doesn't really say why. Do you remember why?
Well, it's definitely a religious cross, I believe.
So, Crimson Cross of St. Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. That's the state flag. That's Alabama.
There's some cool stuff in there, but I've talked about that in the past videos too, like that cool quilt, barn quilt walk kind of thing that happens, or that you can tour through there. Bunch of barn quilts. All right, so the next 35th chart that came out was Arizona. It is the 48th state. It's getting up there, and it became a state in 1912. Its motto is, can you say that? Ditus Deus.
Yeah, Ditat Deus.
Ditat Deus. Deus.
Deus.
Deus, which means God. So, interpreted, it is God and riches. It was really fun reading about Phoenix. I think if we just think of it like the desert, down there. Here's one really cool fact. Besides the fact that, see that flower on the cactus? The flower is the state flower. And you could stitch that flower in white if you want. That's really like exactly what it looks like. It looks like a plastic little white flower that grows on that cactus.
Yours is a button, right?
I chose to put a button on it. It's actually a JBW. Sorry, not JBW. Sorry, Judy. Just another button company snowflake button stitched on with with yellow thread. So it looks like the center of the button.
That information's on the chart also, right?
Yes, it's all on there for you. Yep. So that cactus only grows in Arizona and a very small portion of the border of California, because that desert kind of wraps over into California. Mm-hmm. So it's very unique. And those cactus are cool. I took a trip to Arizona a couple times, but recently, and they're just everywhere. I think, are they like an endangered plant now or something?
They are.
Like if you dig up earth that have them on them, you need to transplant them or sell them. You have to do something to try to keep them alive. And the Navajo Nation, the largest Native American reservation, is located in Arizona. Compared to other states, Arizona has the largest percentage of its land set aside as Indian land.
All right, 36 is Maine. And one unique thing about Maine is the name of the state, Maine. It is the only state that has a name that's only one syllable. So that's unique. It also has the nation's largest harvest of wild blueberries every year. We talked about that. New Jersey grows gardens, blueberries, but Maine has the most wild blueberries. And about 40 million pounds of lobsters caught each year off the coast of Maine. 90% of the nation's supply.
That's a lot for wild.
It's a lot of lobsters. Now I'm getting hungry.
Right. Lobster. Yum. Which, factoid for Louisiana, you talk about crawfish and crawdads and all of that, which are basically little teeny mini lobsters.
Freshwater, yeah.
Mm-hmm. probably the most of many that are grown or produced anywhere in the country is Louisiana.
I would think so. Crawfish,
Conditions are right for crawfish, which are mini lobsters, right?
Yeah.
Are they baby lobsters or just a different?
They might be
strain?
a whole different species for all I know.
Yeah. Anyway, love crawfish too. So good. All right. The next state is 37th chart is Florida. It became a state in 1845. It's the 27th state. I tried to adapt a little bit of that Art Deco and streamline modern building style that there's more of in Florida than any other state in the Miami area, by doing those numbers a little Art Deco looking. They are one of how many states that still have the word God in their motto? Is that on here? It's like maybe 3. No, there's like 5, I believe. So their state motto is "In God We Trust." So I had to put that on the chart once again. It is nicknamed the Sunshine State, and of course the orange blossom is its state flower, and its fruit is orange, and its reptile is the alligator. Those are kind of some facts we know about Florida. The word Florida, or the name Florida, is a Spanish word that means flowery. It is believed that soon after the discovery in 1513, Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon gave Florida its name either because of the lush flora or because of the Spanish Pascua Florida floral Easter festival that was being celebrated at the same time. So there we've got some grapefruit, some limes, some lemons, orange floss, all the good citrus colors in that Florida pillow. That was kind of one of my favorites to stitch.
All right, 38 is Arkansas. Arkansas, the 25th state in the nation, became a state in 1836. And interestingly, in 1932, Hattie Caraway of Arkansas became the first female elected to the U.S. Senate. There's also a state park called Crater of Diamonds in Arkansas. It's the only diamond field in North America. Visitors can go there and travel, or visitors are allowed into the park. And they're also allowed to keep what they find. And recently, just a few years ago, a 13-year-old girl from Missouri found a diamond there that was just under 3 carats.
Oh my God.
Got to keep it. And the largest diamond that was ever found there back in 1924 was a 40-carat diamond. It's named Uncle Sam.
Maybe you want to visit there.
Right?
Maybe you want to go find
That'd be
your own
fun.
diamond. That's so cool. Did you know that?
I wonder if that 13-year-old girl's keeping that for her own engagement ring someday.
I hope so. I hope so. They're a great big, necklace,
Right.
solitaire, whatever. Okay, so the 39th chart I'm throwing at you is Alaska.
Oh, I love this one.
I do too. Look at that sled and the Iditarod dogs, the Alaskan husky dogs. And of course there's a tree because there's a lot of pine up there in Alaska. That star constellation there is the Big Dipper with the North Star at the end of it for what is on Alaska's state flag. So you can see it's the 49th state. Here's the story about that Iditarod. This is probably my favorite story about Alaska. Other than wow, there's a lot of wow in Alaska. In 1925, diphtheria was sweeping through Nome, and due to blizzard conditions, air travel was not possible. As a result, and this is 1925, so this is almost 100 years ago. As a result, dog sled teams traveled 674 miles in 127 hours to transport life-saving medicines from Anchorage to Nome. Now, each year in March, the Iditarod Sled Dog Race recreates the original Great Race of Mercy in its honor. until we did this research, I did not know that's what the Iditarod was for. I thought they were just doing it for fun to show,
Right.
oh yeah, we can travel through the snow on dog sleds and transport food. Much more than that. Save
Very
lives.
cool, huh? Yep.
Yeah.
And I love that the Alaska state flag has the Big Dipper on it, pointing to the North Star, because they say that way. By looking to the Alaska state flag, you can always find your way home.
Aw. That's a good one.
I think that's neat. Okay, 40 is Michigan. Michigan, the 26th state, entering the Union in 1837. Couple of little things, interesting tidbits. We all know that Michigan has Great Lakes surrounding it or on its border. And Michigan has their own postal service mail delivery boat. So yeah, it's named the J.W. Westcott II, and it delivers mail to boats on the lakes bordering the state of Michigan.
So if you're a postal nerd, you just got a good one.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yep, that is a good one.
Also, the first female to earn a pilot's license came from Michigan back in 1912. Her name was Harriet Quimby.
Oh, cute. Okay. Chart number 41. We're getting up there. Okay, is Wisconsin. Oh man, did I love
Another good one.
this one. I just loved getting to put a red cow on my chart, on a cross-stitch chart. It's the 30th state. Became a state in 1848. And the reason the word cheese is on there, okay, fences, first of all, because cows have to have fences. Otherwise, they just wander, is the border. And cheese. Here's the fact about the cheese and Wisconsin. Let's see. The dairy cow has been recognized in the state's constitution for its valuable contribution to the state. The state's license plate slogan is America's Dairyland. Dairy cows are bred for producing milk, the Holstein breed, which is the black and white cow, which is why I put black and white ribbon on my Fred milk packages, because of the Holstein cow, because I grew up with Holstein cow. We milked one for a while too. So that's why I had to use that. Let's see, dairy cows are bred for producing milk. The Holstein is the most common dairy cow. Wisconsin is a national leader in the production of milk and other dairy products. Now it says it is a national leader, so we're not saying it produces the most every year. Because that was questioned last time Sandy and I were going over these new ones. It's even illegal in Wisconsin restaurants to choose the margarine. And it came up, that's one that came up in Jeopardy.
That was a Jeopardy question. I do remember that.
Cheese lovers celebrate Cheese Days, a festival held in Monroe, Wisconsin, every other year. Not every year, every other year. And I can't remember how you know which year.
I don't know.
It starts on.
Probably odd or even.
Yeah. You can Google it and find out. But I kind of want to go. I love cheese. I have always loved cheese. Are you cheese lovers? I'm a cheese lover.
Who doesn't love cheese? It's just so yummy.
It's so good. It's so good. Better than milk.
All right. 42 is Minnesota. Love Minnesota. I love that loon. Look at that profile of that loon bird.
Let's just say hi to Sydney and Alan.
Right.
And
Good
Evie
friends of
while we're
ours that
here.
live there. Hi, Evie. So the state bird is the loon. All kinds of cool stuff, but let's just highlight a couple of things. Laura Ingalls Wilder, author of Little House on the Prairie books, hails from Minnesota, and the books are set in Minnesota. And the world's first open heart surgery took place in Minnesota. And the loon is the state bird. And there's some interesting details about the loon in the chart.
Okay, the 43rd chart is Kansas. It was made a state in 1861, and it's the 34th state. That trail you see across there of sunflowers symbolizes, of course, that the state flower is wild sunflowers, and its nickname is the Sunflower State. That tree that just looks like kind of a massive tree leaf blob is the Plains cottonwood. So if you're familiar with cottonwood trees, they're big. They're huge. So we had to have a big, right? Cottonwood.
That's right.
On the chart. Legend has it the pioneers traveling westward through Kansas would plant sunflowers along their way to provide sustenance, beauty, and landmarks for those who would follow. For thousands of years, though, Native Americans found great value in sunflowers, using them for food, oil, and as protected barrier for other crops. They're strong. Those stalks are, like a tree trunk.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next.
Okay.
Try to get through this. Here we go.
West Virginia is number 44, the 35th state. And West Virginia had some surprisingly cool stuff to talk about.
Oh, my word, yeah. Loved it.
I'll just highlight a couple. So there's a county in West Virginia called Monroe County. And throughout the entire county, there are no traffic lights, no four-lane highways, no fast food restaurants. So talk about just a quiet, simple county.
Wow.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Nice.
But one interesting thing, prior to 1896, in the nation, there was no rural mail delivery. So the vast majority of Americans living throughout the United States prior to 1896 all had to travel from their farms or wherever they lived into town to go to the post office to pick up their mail. The Postmaster General, William Wilson, who was from West Virginia, decided to change that, and he established the first free rural delivery route, and that was in Jefferson County, West Virginia. And it was a success. Within a few years, rural mail delivery spread throughout the nation. So that's why there's a mailbox depicted on the chart. Lots of other cool stuff about West Virginia, too.
Like that brick road.
Like that brick road. What's that all about?
I'm just going to make a quick little correction here. Last video I did with Sandy, we talked about the red color for Kansas being depicted and so nice of like Kansas City Chiefs. Well, they're not in Kansas. They're in Missouri.
Kansas City Chiefs are in Kansas City, Missouri, because Kansas City straddles the border.
Yeah, it's in both states. And I didn't realize that because, that shows what a non-football buff I am. But although I love football, I love watching football. We love football.
And Kansas City Chiefs are in the Super Bowl this year.
Get ready. Get ready. But anyway, one of the viewers pointed that out to me. I appreciate that because I like to get things right most of the time. But like Sandy said, we make up stuff all the time, don't we? Okay, so the next one is the 45th chart, Nebraska. And I loved doing this chart too. I love doing them all. But this one in particular, we had some visitors from Nebraska at market last year, and I said, okay, tell me what to put on the state. A couple of things that they said for sure, what we're really known for is that state flower, the goldenrod, and that they're the Cornhusker state. Scotts Bluff, right, was one of the landmarks. They said we should definitely, and Chimney Rock were something we should definitely depict. So we kind of went all out on this one. And not that we did the others, but we put 2 pictures on there of those monumental places. Chimney Rock, of course, being the top one, and then Scotts Bluff is the one below. And I made sure to get something that looked like goldenrod. I believe it does. Over there by the state bird, which is the western meadowlark. So you've got all that gold, and then you've got some corn, since there's the Cornhusker state down there across the bottom. And some more sunflowers, because there's more sunflower history that goes through. And Willa Cather's masterpiece, which is a masterpiece, My Antonina, was set in Nebraska and brings to life the American West and paints a vivid picture of beauty on the plains. And she talks about the Sunflower Trail in that book also. Also in O Pioneers, her other book.
Which one's better, O Pioneers or My Antonia?
I haven't read O Pioneers yet, just My Antonia. Yeah. And I loved it. I could read it again and again. I think you read that one, didn't you?
Yes.
Christopher did in high school too.
Yes.
It's a good one. She's a very good author.
I'm trying to remember if I've read Old Pioneers. I don't think I have.
I don't think so.
No, I would have
I don't
remembered.
think I have either. There's a bunch of, that and The Death Comes for the Archbishop. Highly recommend. So what was so fun and timely about finishing these last 10 states? We did 41 through 50, and then we drove to Missouri because we were invited at that time. This wasn't something we had planned. We were invited to go visit with Stitch, etc., and share our states and patterns and sawdust technique in their store. And it was wonderful, so fun. But we decided, since these states all came 41 through 50, that we were going to be able to travel through to go down into Missouri and then come back home and visit how many more on our list that we've never been to.
Several. Lots.
So we went through, and I'm going to try to splice in here some pictures, another video. It's just getting so long, I don't know if I want to do that right now. But we did go through
South Dakota,
Mount
Minnesota.
Rushmore.
Yeah.
Drove through Minnesota, which we could have stopped. Couldn't.
Visited friends in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, which was amazing.
It was beautiful.
Go check out Happy Hills Flower Farm. Those are our friends, Doug and Jen, on Instagram, because she will deliver flowers if you live within a 45-mile radius of, I think 45, of Cashton, Wisconsin.
Well worth it.
Totally
You're from there?
worth it.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah. And then we drove through Kansas and Nebraska and Missouri, and it was
On
a
our
really
way
neat
home.
road trip.
Yeah.
We love taking road trips. It was lots of fun.
We do. There's a lot of neat things to learn. So we did actually go by Chimney Rock and Scotts Bluff. Ate the best coconut cream pie. I don't even
That's
like it.
right. We got to go back there.
I don't even like it. I don't even love coconut cream pie. And it was the best coconut cream pie we've ever had. Chris loves it. And
It's my favorite.
at that restaurant in Scotts Bluff,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It
right.
was like the Timber Lodge or something right there on the corner.
So if you're ever traveling through Scotts Bluff, or if you're ever traveling through Nebraska, go to Scotts Bluff, eat the coconut cream pie.
We stopped at the memorial there too and everything.
It was definitely worth
really
seeing.
interesting.
Really neat.
They said that what happened was there was was it the Native Indian Trail, and then there was the Mormon Trail by the river. They were separate because one was common and one didn't want, because when the pioneers were coming across, they were being persecuted, and right, so they wanted to be a little more private.
Well, and it kind of also had to do with trying to decide where you wanted to cross the river.
Mm-hmm.
So some crossed the river earlier and traveled on the north bank of the river westward.
Mm-hmm.
Others traveled on the south bank of the river westward and then had to cross the river later.
Well, and so there was either more rocks or trail, or less trail, or trail and water.
Right.
Both bad for a wagon. So, yeah, so interesting.
Yes. Crossing rivers are a challenge if you're in a wagon.
Yeah.
Pulled by horses.
Oh. And everything you want is in that wagon.
Okay, 46, Colorado. And lots of good like always, wonderful information. So, Catherine Bates wrote the song America the Beautiful, and she did so after being inspired by a beautiful view from Pikes Peak in Colorado. Colorado is the nation's highest state, the highest average elevation, and that is 6,800 feet. Denver is the mile-high city because its elevation is 5,280 feet. However, a little bit of trivia. I think this was a Jeopardy question at one point. The state capital that's the highest in elevation is not Denver, the state capital in the nation. And if you had to guess, if you don't know, it might be, I was surprised to find out. The highest state capital in the nation is Santa Fe, New Mexico. It sits over 6,000 feet in elevation.
And that's a pretty one, too.
It is. It's really neat.
Really pretty. Okay, next state, 47th. We're coming down to it here. One thing I want to point out, I'm going to talk about threads here on this one because I tried to highlight all our wonderful hand-dyed thread dyers by using names of their threads in my charts when appropriate, because it's really fun to kind of coincide those things. So this one is a good depiction of that. North Dakota became a state in 1889, and it's the 39th state. Its state slogan is legendary. So that's why the word legend is on there. Its state insect is the ladybug. Its state fruit is the chokecherry. So red was the next. So I went red, blue, red, blue, red, blue on my thread choices is the main color on these. And having 3 different linens that alternated the reds and blues, I think it dispersed them nicely because you were going with an even number versus a odd number. But when I got to North Dakota, because of the chokecherries, and I have a fondness for chokecherry because we grew up with chokecherries and chokecherry syrup, and decided to use the colors cherry cobbler and red currant as the main reds in here, and I really love how they turned out. Most importantly, though, on this chart is, you know, we all love this, the bees and the industry of bees and the honey and the hive and everything that comes from them. Fact of our nation, North Dakota is the queen bee of honey. On average, each year the state produces more than twice as much honey as any other state. Not just the most, twice as much. So I
and I think it's like California that's like the second most, some big, huge state, something like that.
So who knows what's going on with the blossoms and the chokecherries, but man, they're making honey. They're producing. So there's some honeycomb on the side of that border and a bee chart a bee charm, and then a ladybug charm. The ladybug charm, I believe, comes from the wonderful charms. Oh, does it say in here Jupiter? By Jupiter. Look at you. And the bumblebee charm I just found on Amazon, but you could put anything on there. Yeah. Got some interesting state nicknames. So, yeah, we're done with North Dakota because honey, I think that pretty much sums it up. Everything.
All right, 48th state in the nation. No, sorry. 48th chart is South Dakota, which is the 40th state in the nation. And is the Rushmore state. That's the state nickname. On our road trip, we were able to travel through South Dakota, and we went and spent some time, went to go see the Mount Rushmore monument, and we loved it. We thought it was fantastic seeing that. Definitely worth seeing. If given the opportunity, we highly recommend it. What was it that we learned? 400 and some odd? How many workers?
411 maybe.
So back before World War II, 400 and some odd workers all working, you know, hanging off of mountainsides, on harnesses, on scaffolding, all this activity going on with explosives and carving rock, and it's huge, you know, 100 years ago almost, and huge endeavor to carve these figures out of this stone. Not one of them was killed accidentally during their work on Mount Rushmore.
Intentionally.
Well, we don't know about that.
We didn't read that, but no one died.
No one died.
The monument said so.
Of those 400 and some odd workers working on Mount Rushmore. We thought that was really cool to hear.
Yeah, and we loved that all the states were represented. Plus, and I have been asked if I'm going to, you know, add Puerto Rico and a couple other of these.
U.S. Virgin Islands, yeah.
Yeah, even though they're
American
not
Samoa.
technically states, I'm still thinking about that. We'll get to that. But all of the states, plus these others, their flags are flown in, like they just, you know, follow the sidewalk getting to the monument lookout point where you can sit and just talk and enjoy the monument. Anyway, it was beautiful. We really, really are so glad that we went. What I thought was really cool about Mount Rushmore too is like 30 miles away, you can see Washington's profile.
Yeah, from a long
and
ways
so
away.
You're like, you know, driving down the freeway, just look, you see his profile and you're like, he's up there on top of the mountain. That's his head. Yep. It's just the rock and there's trees all around it, but you can tell where you're headed, and then you have to drive around a whole nother mountain to get up into the monument. And I thought South Dakota was a beautiful state, too.
I did, too. I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Before visiting it in person, I would have thought that, it was going to be kind of a barren wasteland.
Desert, yeah.
One mountain out there all by itself that had the figures carved in it, and that's about it. But no, it was beautiful terrain.
And the Black Hills Mountains are out there, that whole...
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Lots of camping.
It was really neat.
Pretty looking stuff there. Okay, so when Sandy and I did the video last, I was pointing out that Washington State came up and we had to have a bowl of apples because I couldn't remember if it was the apple leader or not of the nation. Anyway, this 49th chart is for the state of Washington. It was the 42nd state, became a state in 1889. So I just looked up the facts about the apples, and its state fruit is the apple. Thus, I used apple fritter as the main red thread. And they do have a state insect, which is the green darner dragonfly. So you can buy that little charm, if you'd like, from Jupiter. And they have that too. Where I got most of my charms that I have put in buttons are from Shepherd's Bush. So they can help you out with that too. But most cross-stitch stores do carry them. Here's the facts about the fruit, though. Washington is America's apple cart. It was quoted in somewhere we got some of this information. It leads the nation in the production of apples, as well as cherries, pears, and raspberries. Now, it's Michigan that has the Cherry Festival, but they don't lead the production in cherries. But they do have a very large area of Michigan that does produce cherries, which I'd love to go to the Cherry Festival someday. Oh, would that be cool? And we haven't visited Michigan yet, so that's on our bucket list. Anyway, Washington's also known as the Evergreen State, so that's why there's some beautiful pine trees on there also. And Washington was named after the father of America, George Washington, and there is a city named George in Washington.
That's cool.
Okay.
So someone could be from George Washington.
Yeah, that's their address. George, Washington, USA. Very cool.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
And last but certainly not least, our 50th chart and the 50th state is Hawaii.
And its main floss color is Weeks Dye Works Deep Sea.
Very cool.
Just for that.
And on the chart, if you notice right down here, those are bats depicted on the chart.
Not the ocean, but you could call it the ocean too, because they kind of
We'll
look
talk
like
about that.
waves.
There's also a big prominent pineapple on the chart, and that's, of course, understandable because Hawaii is home to the world's largest pineapple plantation. But what about the bat? So get this. This was news to us that we didn't know before. The bat is the only land-based mammal native to Hawaii. No other mammals.
No mice or rats, or did they come on ships? Or
not native to
Weird.
the lands of Hawaii. There are sea-based mammals like seals and dolphins and things like that. But land-based mammals, the bat is the only one. Isn't that bizarre?
Wow. Does
Now,
it have anything to do with fruit or pineapple?
and there are lots of other animals in Hawaii, like birds and things, just not mammals. So,
Weird.
yeah.
And it's a bat. Are
And
they
it's a
big?
bat.
Are they little? They're probably little, like fruit.
As far as bats go,
Bats.
yeah, I think they're only like 12 feet long and only carry away small people. No, I think they're normal like
Scary.
bat size.
Well, there's big bats, and then there's little bats.
Yeah. I don't think they're very big.
Oh my gosh, bats.
I'm not sure.
They just freak me out completely. Bats.
Lots of interesting history about Hawaii and how it became a state and how it was its own nation prior to the U.S. basically conquering it.
Yeah.
Kind of
Taking it
eye-opening
over.
to read about.
Well,
Anyway,
and wasn't it all political and based on war and like a good location and
yes.
stuff like that? So, yeah. But I've never been to Hawaii. Chris has been to Hawaii.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll get there one of these days too. I think on the list of states that we have traveled to or been to,
It's getting up there.
30? It's getting up there. That we've lived in 7 right? I believe.
That sounds
and
right.
we've moved probably somewhere around 25 times in our 35 years of marriage, which is coming up on the 23rd of April in 2023.
That's
so
right.
Melissa, if you're watching, I noticed that you have the 23 number is kind of a lucky number too. Melissa Clark. Okay, she's the one that posted that on Facebook. And I was like, we have the same number, 23.
Right. Very cool.
So yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of moves, and we don't regret one of them.
They've all been wonderful.
Some of them may have been forced and out of our hands because they
work-related things, and
just bad construction.
Stuff that happened, right?
We've had bad stuff happen in some of the places we rented, but that's life. And so you look at those things and you move on to the next, and you can see why it happened.
Right.
So, okay,
Absolutely.
grab your stack down there because I just want to show this stack, and then we're done.
Okay.
So there we go. 50 states. I'm kind of happy about it. Kind of pleased.
Yeah, as well you should be.
When the last one was done, I think I had a moment of happy tears. You know, like they say, the happy and the sad. Like you're so happy a project's over and it feels good, but the experience is over. But we can still live it by traveling these places and seeing these beautiful parts of our country and appreciating the sacrifices that so many went through before us.
Being a small part of, this whole production and seeing these charts get created has just made me a little bit more appreciative of the wonderful land we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me a little bit more proud to be an American.
Mm-hmm. But also grateful.
And grateful, mostly grateful, especially for the wonderful people, the pioneers that paved the way so that all of us could be here and enjoy the freedoms that we have and the land that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So many people sacrificed so much so that we could enjoy these liberties today.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a wonderful thing and a blessing in our lives.
Like my dad says, lest we forget.
That's right.
So
very true.
Wow, I don't know what I should do with my glasses. What a way to end the show. Okay, well, we're tired, and that is a very long video. It looks like it's 2 hours. I don't know if we'll edit anything out or not, but there you go. If you want to watch all of this, go for it.
Thanks for letting me be part of it, darling.
Thanks, Hen.
Bye, FlossTube.
Bye, FlossTube. We'll see you soon. Maybe at market, maybe after market.
Sounds good.
Bye. So, Hun, we made it.
We did. We made it.
Mount Rushmore.
Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. How cool is this? Look at those guys. Their noses so chiseled.
Isn't that amazing?
So, what did we just hear someone saying? That there's been 400 workers on this sculpture, and not one died in the construction of this thing. I'm going to turn the camera around.
Spanned over like 15 years. And so 400 workers over 15 years in such precarious circumstances, I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. Pretty amazing. And we just did the chart for South Dakota.
And here we are.
Here we are. the Rushmore state. Do you remember why it was named Rushmore? The sculptor's name isn't Rushmore.
It's not. There was a reason, but I can't recall it.
We'll get to that later.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to look it up again.
We'll talk about it. Okay, adios. Now we're on to Minnesota next.
Yeah.
We're going to go see the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum. Bye.
I have wandered along the bristly brambles, snagging threads across the thorns that hedge my way. if perchance I find the place where I might amble, where the bees and honey trees have called my name. I'll sing, come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. My dreams of sewing seams had been fading, and my goals of mending holes had all but died, till the moment the bewitching stitching maiden recommended that I cast my fears aside. She sang, come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. So if you find you're out of spirits, out of money, and you're walking down the dusty road alone, come with me to the realm of hope and honey. In the land of milk and thread, you'll find a home. We'll sing, come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find. Come all ye stitchers, come, while away the time. Fetch the needle and the thread, see what ye may find.